In this video about the cardiovascular system, we will discuss the cardiac cycle and how it is controlled. So the cardiac cycle involves a number of different things. The blood enters the left ventricle, and then the atrium contracts, sending the blood via the atrial-ventricular valves, filling up the ventricle. At the same time, the semilunar valves close in the artery. The ventricle then contracts, forcing the blood out of the heart via the artery, and the atrial-ventricular valves will close. And then our ventricle will relax, the pressure in the ventricle drops, and blood begins to flow from the atrium into the ventricle. We go back to the beginning again. Semilunar valves close and the atrium contracts. And this repeats continuously, causing the blood to flow around the body and our double pump system of our heart. Within the cardiac cycle, it's very important to understand the idea of pressure changes. Because the changes in the pressure of the heart relate to the amount of contraction and relaxation. So here's a graph illustrating the aortic pressure, the atrium pressure, and the ventricular pressure. So when the atrium contracts, it increases the pressure within the atrium and forces the blood into the ventricle. When the ventricle contracts, it creates a huge amount of increase of pressure, forcing the blood out of the heart at high pressure, out through the arteries. And then the ventricle will relax and the pressure drops to below that of the pressure in the atrium, and the blood will start to flow back into it. So these continuous changes the arteries as well. Within a heartbeat, there is the classic heart sounds. So what causes these heart sounds? And why do we hear them? And we use a stethoscope to hear them because they aren't that loud. And simply because they're caused by the closing of the valves in the cycle. Just simple closing of tissue. First heart sound is attributed to the closing of the atrial-ventricular valves. So when the ventricles contract, they cause these to close and slam shut under pressure. And then the second heart sound is when the semilunar valves slam shut, when the atrium contracts and the ventricle relaxes. And these continuously change the pacing between each other, creating the classic noise we know as a heartbeat. The faster the heartbeat, the faster the cycle goes, the faster the opening and closing of these valves are. Really quite interesting. So how is the cardiac cycle pace controlled? Well, that's down to the idea of signal conduction. The signal comes down from a nerve, causing the SAN to initiate an impulse. Remember, the SAN is the sinoatrial node, which is in the right wall of the atrium, commonly known as the pacemaker. This impulse is unable, though, to go directly to the ventricles due to the fibrous tissue blocking it. So it has to send the impulse to the atrial-ventricular node, a second node in the atrium. And this is just above the junction where the atrium and the ventricle join. It takes 0.03 seconds for the SAN to send an impulse to the AVN. But the AVN delays this impulse for another 0.09 seconds. This allows all the blood to transfer into the ventricle to get a full ventricle, so that when the ventricle contracts, it can send out the maximum amount of blood possible. And the impulse from the AVN is sent through the heart to both ventricles simultaneously using conducting fibers, and they run down and out through the septum, which is the central part of the heart. Finally, our review slide. So in this video, we looked at the cardiac cycle, the way it changes in terms of contracting and relaxing of the chambers, the changes of pressure within our chambers, what causes the heart sound, which is the closing of the valves, and signal conduction, how the AVN, the SAN are used in controlling the heartbeat and sending signals for the muscles to contract. So that is the end of our video today, and the end of my cardiac cycle videos. Any comments, any questions, please feel free to add those in the comments, and I will try to help you out. So until next time, good luck.